We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joy in my house, joy, I got joy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. A reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who shares.
I'm joined here by my co-host and author of Shaped by the Master's
And we're going to
Hand,
have to get some new books so I can
Lolita
say something
Robinson.
else. How are you doing?
Welcome to another day of Joy in My House.
Welcome to my, I am glad to be here. And it always works out good when we have some time off.
Yes, because last week, if you tuned in with us, we rebroadcasted Debbie Boone's episode.
Oh, that was great.
Where she actually performed live as well. And if you don't know who Debbie Boone is, she is the daughter of Pat Boone.
I'm sure everybody, knows. And Shirley Boone. I mean, Shirley had a lot to do with it, too. So, hi, Van Eric. He's laughing. I know you guys, you think you do your one-man show, you know?
But I did want to just recap a little bit on Debbie Boone because you actually toured with her and recorded with her.
I did.
So it was a great opportunity, and I'm pretty sure it was very nostalgic for her to come on in.
It was. You saw me get emotional. You know why? Because from this point of life, you really have to. I look at you guys in your 30s and 40s, and that's as far as I'm going to go. 50s too, but you don't realize your life. Right now, the most important things are happening. Someone was talking about that on the radio. You don't realize the most excitement, you look as well as you're going to look, and when you're in it, you don't know it.
Right.
So it was just very emotional for me to look back on what God had done, to be a part of that when she was doing You Light Up My Life, plus the fellowship, the camaraderie, all those people, I don't get to see them anymore. You really have to take today and live in it and really savor it, because you look back and
it's gone.
It's gone.
And I love that you brought that up, because we did talk about it when we did a recap of her show, how we really need to be content where
in
we
the
are.
moment. And we talk about that in program all the time.
And that's my next
what were you
great
gonna
segue.
say?
I was going to say, in program, they teach us to live in the moment, not to worry about the past, the shame and guilt of it,
right,
or the fear of the future, and really just be in the moment, do what's right in the moment, and tomorrow will take care of itself.
It's right, and enjoy it, because we don't have tomorrow.
It's not promised.
It's not really something I would think, okay, live in the moment. What does that mean, live in the moment? In other words, this is nice. Make the best of it.
Right.
Make the best of it. I listen to Dennis Prager a lot, and he had a show on that. He had a show on, if your life is not horrific, it's terrific. He had that on the Happiness Hour.
That is great. Say that again.
That was Dennis Prager. He said on the Happiness Hour, if your life is not horrific, it is terrific.
That is great.
And
I'm going to use that.
And that's something, and make sure, And he had a guy who called in and said, you know what, you're right. He talked about one morning he got up, got ready for work, and all of a sudden he was a paraplegic by the end of the evening. He couldn't use his body. He couldn't move. It was some kind of virus.
Oh,
and
wow,
so,
virus.
and it just went through his body, and now he doesn't have use of his limbs, but he's finding joy where he can. But you know, right now things are not bad.
Well, I kind of feel that too. You know,
we got a good life.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend now, and we're really working it God's way, and we're trying to really do it the right way. And I think, what is it going to be like to get married, to buy a house, to all these things that incorporate what a marriage is? And she has a daughter, I have a daughter, to being a stepfather, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming.
Right.
You feel like, how am I going to do this? But if I just live in the moment and do what's right now
today.
and take care of them the best I can, tomorrow will take care of itself.
Well, get to know each other, go to shows. I mean, yesterday one of the ladies, I got a chance to do the retreat for our church, Bridges. It was a woman's retreat, and it was really wonderful. It was really a good experience for me to talk to another group of women and to share from, my experience, strength, and hope. But one woman was saying, I said, well, what are you going to do after the retreat? Because it was like about 4:30. Oh, my husband and I are going to go to a concert. We're going to go listen to Hawaiian music. No big deal. I thought, do you know I would love if my husband was still here?
And to
I
be
would
able to
love to go.
Yeah.
I mean, just the things that you guys are doing, going home and taking care of your kids. And
I find a lot of fulfillment in that.
Yeah, you
in the small
really
things.
enjoy it. I mean,
I
enjoy
love my
it.
daughters. Today we're going out and have tea time at the American Girl doll
Again,
store.
you
know?
guys really live. I think you like the American Dolls too.
You know what?
You're the one.
You know what brings me the joy is to see my girls, including my girlfriend, just see their joy. It's priceless.
That is so. They're getting another doll. I saw Grace in there. And what was the other name?
Zenadine, and there's another doll.
There's
that they
one
have.
more. What was her name? Zayna and Grace. Are you getting another doll?
No more. Those dolls are way too expensive. We're just gonna go do the tea time, and they'll pick out an outfit for them, and that'll be all.
But that's special.
But
those girls are gonna remember that.
Thank you.
They're gonna remember that.
And that's what we're talking about: living in that moment and enjoying where you're at right now, being content in that.
Right.
Of course, I'd rather be at a football game, a Dodger game. Dodgers are in the playoffs.
Oh, that's right.
But at the end of the day, if I don't enjoy my children, my kids, my relationship.
They're going to be gone one day. They're going to have their own husbands and their own children, so don't worry about the house and all that. Enjoy that tea today. Enjoy that tea today.
But we also had a great show for you the week before last, which was with the founder of Loaves and Fishes times 10.
Wasn't that something?
And that was Robert Floyd, where he performed live as well, but his ministry was feeding the homeless. You talk about being content. He went above being content. He started giving back and being of service.
And not caring about the house. And that's all great, because this world promotes outside stuff, achieving. But serving is a whole different manner. That he gets out there and goes through the produce and hands that food out. Him and his... do you remember the gentleman?
I don't remember his name, but his partner that's been with him for
in the ministry.
A while.
That's convicting to me. Mm-hmm. That is convicting to me that people do that. I met another lady who goes to Bridges with us. Her and her husband do something similar. Once a month, they go through the produce and they go out there and they see. That's not glamorous.
It's really not. It's you're in the trenches. You're in the front lines. Well, same with you when you're out there speaking, or my girlfriend Ashley, who has her own Limitless Ministries. When she's out there at the strip club trying to get these girls in and dangerous situations, or you're out there speaking to somebody who's broken, who you're gonna have to pray over, where she's going through a divorce. It's not glamorous at all.
It isn't glamorous. It
just
isn't
the opposite.
Glamorous.
It's draining.
It's not glamorous, especially in terms of now the Lord opened up the door for me to make a little income until my finances are worked out. I'm like a companion to senior citizens. I have one man that I am. He's 70 years old. He's had a couple of strokes, but I'm going to go 3 days a week, make a little income, and be a companion to elderly people.
Wow.
And see, to me, ministry, I think a lot of us look at the big names. You're sitting up there on the pulpit, and you're sitting up there at the banqueting table, and you're being served, and you look really nice, and people are adoring you. That is not ministry. Ministry is like what our brother that's going to come on here and do today. Ministry is what you're doing. Do you ever share your walk with your fighters?
Always, especially because they're not believers.
Okay.
So God has me in that industry to share. It's easy to share to believers. We have the same language. We speak the same language. But to share to these men that are fighting or that are very disciplined and share them about Christ, it almost takes them back a little bit.
Right.
But at the end of the day, God has me there for a reason.
Right.
And it's not just to teach them, to develop them, to manage them, to corner them. It's more.
That's right.
It really is. And sometimes they look at me almost as weird. But then when they see my life, how favored I am because of the surrender I have, they're like, wow, you really live a blessed life. And I go, well, it's not anything I did.
Yeah.
It's everything I allowed God to do.
But it is your sphere of influence. We were talking about that today in church. I was sharing that with our elders' wives, like Van and Richard.
Yep.
They have a ministry in terms of they have this
station.
This station. They're letting people come in and share their vision. We all have a ministry ground.
We really do.
And it's awesome that you're out there with fighters. I mean, who else could go there except for someone in your position? And Ashley goes and does her thing.
We just allow God to use us.
Yes.
Because we have a great show for you today, ladies and gentlemen. You have Spiro, who's a ministry leader for Celebrate Recovery out of Park Crest Christian Church. Co-led a meeting with him, and we have a great rapport. And he is here today going to share a piece of his testimony. He has a very powerful testimony, but share a lesson on grace, something we all really need.
If anybody can talk about grace, I think Spiro can.
That's right.
I think Spiro can talk about grace.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in with us today. This is Joy in My House. I want you to find us on Facebook /Joy in My House. Become a fan and receive up-to-date lineups of guests and information. We're going to come right back with Spiro from Celebrate Recovery. You're not going to want to miss. This is Joy in My House, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to stay tuned.
Yep.
Hi, this is Shalon Douglas, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, to demo your startup on air with a Pitch Live to Win syndicated digital broadcasting show. Join us as we share real conversations from real industry experts within the tech, education, media, and entertainment industries for your chance to win opportunities that will gain you access to resources, exposure, and capital. So remember to tune in to the Pitch Live Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality broadcast handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Rhonda Ray, inviting you to join us every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, for Hot Chicks Live. Join us as we discuss the latest fashion, entertainment, sports, and more. So don't forget to tune in to Hot Chicks Live every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio, or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is TJ, inviting you to join us every Sunday at 2 p.m. for Veterans Day Live. Join us as we provide info that would help all military personnel. So don't forget to tune in to Veterans Day Live every Sunday at 2 p.m. That's every Sunday at 2 p.m., exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio, or just watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. I'm joined here by my co-host and recording artist, Lolita Robinson.
How are you doing? Glad to be here.
And
ready to go.
In-studio guest, Spiro from Celebrate Recovery out of Park Crest Christian Church. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. I'm always happy to be here.
That's right.
If you don't know Spiro, he has a very powerful testimony. He is a Celebrate Recovery leader out at Park Crest Christian Church with our very good friend, Kathy Taylor, who's a state representative.
Getting together with her soon this week. That's right, and I consider Spiro our periodic. He comes and gives studies or lessons,
Celebrate Recovery lessons, which I think is at least it's my foundation for my recovery.
Yeah,
I know that you've been in program,
but not like you guys. I mean, it celebrates my life, but I haven't had the training and experiences you guys have had. It's you're right in the heart of it. So
well, thanks to Spiro, we had the opportunity to lead a meeting with him, and it was a very powerful experience, to say the least, to see these men's lives transformed, and for God to continue to work in our lives as we think we're leading them. They're actually helping us more than they could even understand.
That's one of the things that I love about being part of Celebrate Recovery. It's that it's a ministry not only where I'm giving back, but God continues to work through me through that ministry, continues to heal me and work on me. And so every time I go to CR on Friday night and I'm going to be either teaching or I'm just helping lead an open share group, I get to share and participate in my recovery, and not just be there as some kind of leader or anything else. I'm actually there for me as well as for the other people that are coming to the ministry.
See, that's the important thing. That's what we're talking about. You're not sitting up there as the final product. You are engaging and a part of it too, as well as giving back and being ministered to.
And you've always said that, Lolita. You've always said that quite a bit on the show. That this is a process. It's not a program that you arrive.
You don't graduate. No, you don't. Amen.
Well, let's let the audience and viewers get to know you again, Spiro. You really have a powerful testimony. I remember the first time I read your testimony. I always say God books the show. And that Friday night that I went to CR for the praise portion of Friday night, I didn't have a guest for the show, and I was thinking, who am I gonna book? Oh God, I finally just let go, and I said, God, you're going to book the show. Sure enough, you went out there very humbly. You gave the announcements, and I'm very professional. I don't like to step on people's toes. So I went up to Kathy Taylor and said, Kathy, would it be okay if I asked Spiro to come and give his testimony on the show this Sunday? And she was like, that'd be a great idea. She was actually encouraging.
Yeah, she throws everybody else under the bus.
Exactly.
And
But
then
get
you try
her
to get
on.
her, Kathy, see, yeah. But that's
it was
a good
very
leader, though.
interesting because you
Yeah.
sent me your testimony that Friday night, and it weighed very heavy on me. It was something that there was no doubt in my mind that God had intervened in your life. We talk about stories this way that are so powerful, that touch us, and we're gonna get to hear it again in a smaller way. So let's start off. You grew up in a dysfunctional household. At 11 years old, you experienced the worst beating that got you taken away from your mother. Let's just kind of start there.
Oh yeah, my parents were divorced, and so I was physically abused, and the state had to come in, take me away from my mom, brought me to my dad and my stepmom, and unfortunately things didn't get very much better there. While there wasn't any more physical abuse, there was a lot of emotional abuse that went on, and a lot of neglect that went on throughout my teenage years living at my father and stepmother's house.
You know, you touched on that. You kind of glossed over it, but that beating, you went to school that day, and the PD had to come into your house, into school, to take you away because you had so many bruises on you.
Yeah, well, you know, I half my face was covered in bruises, and my arm was covered in bruises and stuff, and swollen, and so when the teacher finally looked up at me.
How long was that? It had to
I
be
was
going
there for
on.
a while.
Yeah, really.
I was there for at least an hour or so, and into the morning before the teacher actually looked at me, because I was always that troubled kid, and so easier
it's easy to look
shove in the
past
back of
you.
the class and
Right.
ignore and whatever else. But when she finally looked at me, and I can still remember her face going pale, and she was just go to the nurse. So I went to the nurse, and next thing you know, there's DCFS coming in, and I had to go to the hospital, take x-rays, make sure nothing was broken, and get examined by a doctor, and then to the police station where they had to take photographs and make a report. And
what was that like, Spiro? Now, see, this is a whole nother aspect of it.
I was absolutely numb at this point. I had shut down, and I could see the look on everybody's faces, and I could, when the adults don't want to talk, then there was a problem.
Something
as a kid.
bad.
And so
right.
I was just numb. I was just going through the motions. And
how old were you again at that time?
I was almost 11.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I was a couple weeks away from being 11 years old, and it was later on, through all that abuse that I started developing my own negative coping mechanisms, and so living with my dad and my stepmoms, I'd get angry a lot, and when I vent my anger, I'd like punch trees in my dad's yard, or like the wall in his basement, the concrete wall in his basement. I'd punch that until like my hands were like basically swollen and bloody, or I'd hit my head on the wall or lockers in school until I was knocked out. And even when I got really depressed and I felt like I couldn't feel anything anymore, I'd actually cut my arms with razors or knives.
So you were doing that. So men do that too. The thing that's really interesting about your anger, though, you would think that you would take it out on other people. Were you beating up people and bullying and all of that?
No, I was always like the small kid in class, and so I'm not very tall, as you can see. So I got picked on a lot, and I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, at a time where gangs were starting to come in and take over the neighborhood I lived in, and so I got to see a lot of violence. I got used to fighting on the street, so I wasn't afraid of getting picked on or anything. And when you get beat up, by your parents, then
why
then
not?
what kids say or kids are going to do didn't affect me. And so they getting made fun of. I didn't get in fights, but if I got pushed or anything else, then I gladly fought back. And since I had this past and this history, I got a lot of leeway with the teachers and the principals and stuff like that. I had an amazing guidance counselor, Mrs. Good, who was really patient with me when I get into fights and stuff.
So
Stuff I should have
her.
gotten expelled for. I didn't get expelled.
They had a lot of grace.
Yeah.
And how interesting that the lesson today is on grace.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention this because nothing helped you contain the feelings of depression or rein your bouts of depression.
Yeah.
But in 1998, you overdosed on LSD. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I had after high school, I'd gotten into drinking and doing drugs, and eventually did an overdose on LSD out here in California. And as a result of that, when I was let out of the hospital, I just got overwhelmed by the sense that everything that happened to me as a kid, everything that my parents had said to me and about me, that I somehow deserved it all. And so I couldn't take that anymore. I just couldn't deal with it. And so...
And I'm sure the enemy was yelling at you too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
And so I thought, I need to get away from all this. I need to get away from life. And so I attempted suicide by climbing over onto an overpass over the 105 freeway, and I jumped off.
Every time you share that, you know what I'm saying? And we're not morbid. We're not trying to get into your life just to hear sensational stories. We're trying to tell people that when you experience hell, what you have, that our God can reach down and pull you up. I have to, every time you talk, it just ministers to me. To go so low. I don't know anybody that's been as low as what you shared. I don't.
Because you said you felt beyond human redemption.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was anything in this world for me anymore. I couldn't stand being in my skin. I didn't like who I was. I know the feeling of looking in the mirror and hating what you see.
Well, when your parents tell you that, or I don't know about your dad, but a mother who was obviously mentally ill, how could you find anything of redemption when the people that are supposed to love you said such horrible things?
Yeah, and plus, I was an addict, and so all the relationships I had formed, even the good people that I had in my life, I had formed those relationships out of serving my own self-interests. And so I did the things that you say, like I love you, or I need you, or all those things like that. But I was really doing it because of how it made me feel, and not because the other person absolutely deserved it.
And I think that's so important to say, because in program, we were taught these applicable tools to have sincere relationships with no agenda, especially when you're making an amends. You don't do it for the other person.
You do it for you. But we didn't. How do you know? How can you give something that you didn't have? So how could you tell people you loved them? And I mean,
it wasn't until I entered into my relationship with Christ and started following Him, being obedient to Him, and going through the process of recovery that I could get those tools in order to be able to understand what love is, and understand what it is to seek forgiveness and to give forgiveness and to make amends.
And let's touch on that, because God entered your life, and I like what you said, reluctantly, because you cursed God.
Oh, yeah.
And let's talk about that experience in the bed where you had no hope.
Yeah, well, not to even be able to commit suicide. That had to
after my attempt at suicide, I had a lot of injuries, and I couldn't sleep. I would fall asleep, and I'd relive that fall, and I'd wake up with my body shaking violently, and you have these broken bones, and your body's shaking, so you feel the bones rubbing against the bone, and I was just racked with physical pain, and I was spiritually dead, and I didn't really have a relationship with God. And my only relationship with God I understood was from Greek Orthodox Church, which was full of all the rituals, and nothing had any meaning. And the only thing my stepmom would always repeat to me, in the nicest way I could place it, is that I was going to go to hell because I was this demonic little child. And so if there was a God, then He certainly had it out for me.
Yes,
and,
it would appear. Yeah, really.
It wasn't until I contacted a friend that I met out here in California. His name is Mike Lewis, and he was a Christian, and when I was in the hospital, I had heard this word being said about me over and over again, which is miracle, because of the stuff that happened where, falling from 40 feet, I should have been dead, and so I was alive. I had just broken bones. That was a miracle.
And how you did, what, maybe I asked this before, how did you not get hit by other cars?
The cops, I was there long enough where police had showed up and stopped the freeway traffic.
Okay, but they weren't able to talk you down.
No.
Okay, you probably said that before.
So they stop traffic, you jump off the freeway and land.
Yes.
And only broken bones.
Yes.
But they were telling you that you were a miracle because you survived that 40-foot drop.
Oh, gosh.
But not only did you survive it, you had your heart didn't explode. Some of the things that should have happened,
like shock to the heart muscle. That when I came in, my heart rate was so high and everything else. My blood pressure was so high and everything else, and so the doctor was convinced that my heart was going to be weakened because of all the shock it took. And lo and behold, no, it's normal. And or my brain had swelled up. I had a brain contusion. And so it swelled up to fill the cavity of my skull, and the doctor's debating if they're going to take out part of my skull to relieve the pressure. And when they had come to that decision, my brain had, within a day, had shrunk back down to normal, and they couldn't explain that.
Oh, boy,
that just doesn't happen. And not only that, but I didn't have any of the issues like a total brain injury that could have happened. I mean, people get in car accidents at 30 miles an hour and get TBIs, and my brain was normal, and there was no explanation. So you hear this word miracle, and so finally I got, maybe there is something to this God guy. So I called my friend Mike and finally asked him why God would save someone like me. I was a drug addict, I was a liar, I was a drug dealer, for a couple years, and did all the violent and necessary things that come with being a drug dealer. And Mike he shared with me that it was a paraphrase of Matthew 5:25, that God lets the sunshine on the wicked and the good, and the rain fall on the righteous and unrighteous alike. And that's when I realized that maybe no matter what happens in our life, that God does love us.
Oh, gosh.
And despite when we suffer, that God loves us. And so I prayed to God for that first time in my life, when I actually was more of a demand than a prayer, but I just wanted to sleep. And that's when I fell asleep praying to God, and I woke up 7 hours later. I've never had the dream of that fall since.
Because you were having nightmares, and you were waking up in excruciating pain, and you could not sleep.
Yeah.
But you prayed to God.
That was the first miracle he did for. I mean, that
he spoke into you.
Yeah, that's when I felt his presence. I woke up that morning and I felt the presence of God undeniably.
Oh, Spiro.
And that started your process.
Yes.
Of your faith.
That was the beginning of the process of my faith.
You wonder why you had to go through all that. Do you ever wonder that, or?
No, I don't need to wonder anymore.
Good. Yeah.
Through the process of me going to recovery, one of the things that I learned was that I lived a life of hardship. So I could be the type of person that can fight for the things. I have a son that's deaf and hard of hearing, and to this day, and for a large portion of his early life, my wife and I had a fight for a lot of things that this kid needed. He didn't have a voice of his own, and God eventually, even though I struggled against it all, eventually what I learned out of that process is that God has designed me as a person who can deal with difficult situations, that can deal with stressful living situations and stress in life, so I could be the kind of dad that can fight for a kid who doesn't necessarily have a voice of his own.
Oh, my goodness. That was beautifully said. And I don't want to jump ahead, because I know later on you're going to talk about the ministry that God's taken you into, but
we're going to go right into your lesson.
Oh, yeah, let's go, man.
So the lesson that we're here about is grace, and at this point in sober recovery, when we get to the grace lesson, it's a transition where we finish up on principle 6, which is evaluate all my relationships, offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me, make amends for harm I've done to others, except when to do so would harm them or others. And we move on to step 9 in the 12 steps, which is the fulfillment of that last portion of the principle. It says, make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And it could be a difficult step, and so
so they tied grace in with the 8th and 9th step.
Yes.
You need a lot of grace to make amends. And
they talk about how it's a little more, it's can be more difficult, or even more difficult than writing or sharing your inventory, because it marks the journey, the step that changes our focus from our relationship with God. And I think that's so important, because first it's about us, it's about me. Then you start saying, well, it's about God.
Right.
And I think that is a pivotal and transitional step.
Yeah, and at this point
and then what we did to others too.
Yeah, well, at this point in the steps, so the steps, the way they're designed is we first work on our relationship with God. We work on our relationship with God within ourselves, and then as we get to this step, we're working on our relationship with God with others.
Right.
And so.
Absolutely.
Grace makes this transition point possible. So a couple things about grace. One of the things that grace isn't is wish fulfillment. And a lot of people, this is where a lot of people stumble when it comes to grace, because they think that their relationship with God, that once they enter that relationship, it should be everything that they want out of life they get. It's whatever we want, God's going to give it to us. And that doesn't happen, and all of a sudden it's, wait, where's God if I'm not getting what I want out of life in this relationship with him? And so,
or a hall pass, you think?
Have you ever experienced that when you enter that relationship with God and you want that, whatever that is in life?
No, I remember that. I remember praying to God and saying, God, I want this, and then he'd make it happen. And then I'd be like, all right, he made that happen. I'm going to pray for this. I'm going to pray for this. But it's not really what was good for me. And I start realizing he took those things away. but it was for the betterment of myself. It's interesting because the things I wanted weren't even good for me.
Yep.
But I started realizing that he was working. I started realizing that he had my best interest. I didn't even have my own best interest, but he did. And we talk about that God provides through grace.
Yes.
Well, grace for me was a little different, though, in terms of he never did fulfill wishes like that. He didn't, but I had to realize that, yeah, he had a lot of grace for my acting out, but there came a time when he was like, we're going to stop this, because I was promiscuous. So I think sometimes people think, well, he's all lovey-daddy, and he understands God. You know, me and God, you know what I'm talking about, Spiro?
Well, God gets it.
Yeah,
sure.
he gets it. Oh, yeah, he gets it all right.
Yeah.
He gave me a little grace there, but then there comes a time when grace is not a license to keep doing what you're doing.
No. And the Apostle Paul, who scholars believe that wrote most of the New Testament, or at least 50% of it anyway, he had this issue with grace, and where he wanted something from God, and God didn't provide it in the way he wanted.
Yeah.
And so in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 8 through 9, Paul is providing God's answer to when he had this thorn in his flesh, and he had asked God to remove it from him 3 times, and it didn't happen. And this is the response that he received. But God said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.
Oh, yeah.
Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. Have either of you ever experienced that, having that thorn in your flesh, where you ask God to remove it and he doesn't take it away?
Yeah, I think mine was in terms of, I really wanted him to heal my marriage. I mean, I waited and prayed and really wanted him to heal the marriage, and he just, well, he was going to take him home eventually, but he didn't do that. But in the midst of that, I sought him more. I sought him more instead of seeking what he could do. But I haven't had a physical infirmity, so that I would think that something that you could identify with. I don't know about Joel.
But that's what we were going to touch on.
Yeah, how about you?
For me, I think my thorn was I wanted success.
There you go.
I wanted to be this great, master and rule over all my students. And he gave me that for a season, but I didn't honor it. I manipulated and did what I wanted, so he took it away. But for me, I always thought I was going to be this great master, have this great academy, and I did.
You got to taste it, but he didn't let you live it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was through my own fault, because
Right.
he did give me my heart's desires at that moment, but I didn't honor it. So for me, that was my thorn. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to work, a corporate office and all these things that I felt were success in society, which really weren't. That was my thorn. And he never took that. He's kept me really humble. He's kept me right at the bottom, the front liners. But I know that you've experienced that.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask
Physically.
you.
Yeah, well, from my injuries, I have a lot of arthritis. Even with surgeries and everything else, it's the way my bones formed, and I have a lot of scar tissue and calcification and everything else. And so I have a lot of pain. I live with pain every day. And I've begged God, literally begged God, just take the pain away from me. I wake up in pain. I go to sleep in pain. It's just part of who I am. And some days I find it tolerable, and other days it's miserable. But God never removed the pain from me. And so what I realize is that it's not that God doesn't exist or that he's cruel or even indifferent to our suffering, but that there's a reason behind when God doesn't answer those prayers in the way that we want, or doesn't remove that thing that we want. And part of that is because we have to understand that that part of the scripture, that grace is sufficient for us. And so now that we know what grace isn't, which is it's not wish fulfillment, let's talk about some things that grace is. The first thing that grace is, it's God's gift. Romans 3:24 says, all need to be made right with God by his grace, which is a free gift. They need to be made free from the sin through Jesus Christ. So God doesn't weigh out portions of grace. So you don't get more grace by having whatever, like more of Jesus in your heart, or by doing all these great things. God doesn't say, oh, well, you did more stuff, so you're going to get more grace. This person did less stuff. James 17 says, every good and perfect gift comes from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like the shifting shadows. And so if you listen to the portion of that scripture where it says every good and perfect gift is from above. So God's grace, whatever amount of grace that we receive, is a good and perfect gift. So we might not get like the thing like the studio or the healed marriage or relief from pain. But when God does give us grace, it is a good and perfect gift.
But we get him. When you were saying that, we get him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's with you in this,
yes,
right?
Yeah. And so God's grace is then we receive it by faith. And so in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 9, it says, "For it is by grace you've been saved through faith, and it's not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that none may boast." And so nothing we do as far as any acts, any work, what your diplomas you have, what skills you have, can earn you grace.
And I think that's so important
mm-hmm.
to say, because I think society tells us it's by merit.
Yep.
You get paid more if you work harder, have a
mm-hmm.
degree, all this. But God is the opposite. God just gives it as a gift, freely.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Freely, He gives that fulfillment of grace.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about having faith as small as a mustard seed. I think, is that where we're going next?
Yeah,
Faith
next,
as small
yes.
as a mustard seed in order for it to grow. But God, that's enough. It's sufficient
Mm-hmm.
if we understand Him. And I think this is the key for me, is knowing that it's enough. Because I get in my flesh and I say it's not enough. I want the Malibu beach house. I want the red Ferrari. You know, I want. When He's giving me just enough
mm-hmm.
of what I need.
Yep.
Well, yesterday I was talking to some ladies, and I can't, break their anonymity, but a lot of people are struggling with it's not enough in them serving God. They need to be doing something more. They feel guilty. They feel like, do you ever feel like that? Like you need to be praying more. You need to be doing something more. It just can't be enough that, I don't know, they just feel guilty that they need to be helping God.
Do
you ever feel like that?
It's a false sense of thinking, in that we haven't we haven't earned it, right? And
right. So, there's the word, earned it.
We haven't earned it. And so, if things aren't going right in life, you're not praying hard enough, or you need
mm-hmm.
more of Jesus in your heart. All those little cliche things that happen, and that's not how God operates.
Mm-mm.
When we receive grace, whatever we've received, that grace is sufficient. Romans 5:2 says, "It is through whom we've been gained access by faith into this grace which we now stand, and we rejoice in the hope of glory of God." And so there's nothing that we can do. There's no amount of work that we can do. There's no amount of, I need to do more things so God will love me more, or I can somehow get a bigger mansion in heaven,
right?
More grace, because there's nothing more we can do. We've earned it through faith.
And you know what, when you're talking, it's just, and that's extreme pride, if you really think
mm-hmm.
about it, because how much more can the Savior do? I mean, He gave His life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, He gave His
Yep.
life that we can have the relationship with the Lord, to have eternity with Him. And so for us to think that we can come along and add something to that, that's really pride. I didn't look at it before like that, but it really is.
Yep. And you talked about it before about where the ministry is happening, with people that are actually involved in it, and it's not the people up on the stage, up on the pulpit, or at the
Mm-hmm.
banquet. And that's what a lot of people do with faith, is
Mm-hmm.
they say, "Oh, look, faith is being the pastor. Faith is being Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is putting those people on a pedestal." And when we do that, we elevate them above ourselves, and we put ourselves lower.
Right.
And that's not what faith is.
And why don't we stop right there? Because when we come back, Spiro's going to share with us the faith that you need.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to want to miss. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joy in My House. I want you to stay tuned. We're going to come right back.
Hey, this is Trisha Mann Grant, and I am inviting you to join us every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Gospel Rhythms, Heaven's Party here on earth. And join us as we talk to the Christians, just not any Christian, but all Christians of entertainment and all walks of life. Don't forget to tune in to Gospel Rhythms, Heaven's Party here on earth every Sunday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio RNB, Live 365, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio, or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality show with a touch of recovery. A reality show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who shares.
I'm joined here by my co-host, Lolita Robinson.
And learning a lot and really receiving. This is great.
And our in-studio guest, Spiro, Celebrate
Yay.
Recovery Leader out of Park Crest Christian Church.
There's the clap. Thank you, Ben.
Welcome back to the show. You know, I think it's so important going through program, as we all have done a step study for Celebrate Recovery. It's important that we share this message with you, these lessons that we've learned that are not just they're not just theories. They're applicable tools that we use on a daily basis now as part of our lives. And it's so key for us to share that with you, because it allows us to live right now where the lessons on grace. It allows us to live in grace.
Yes.
The minute we lose sight of this, we're in our own flesh and we start manipulating, then it's not about God anymore and it's about us. So I want to thank you again for sharing this lesson with us. We're going to touch on the faith that's needed. You know, everybody out there thinks, well, I need to have this amazing, enormous faith. I need to be serving. I need to be up in a pulpit in order to have this thing called grace from God. And we're going to touch on that.
Yeah, we said it before the break, Ephesians 2:8-9, for it's by grace you've been saved through faith. It is not from yourselves, it is from the gift of God, not by works, so that none may boast. And
make sure you speak in here. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Don't want to miss
and
a
so,
thing you're saying.
what we tend to do is we elevate those people above ourselves, and we think that you know, it's by doing these amazing things. But when we listen to that scripture, it's that so that none may boast, because God doesn't measure out faith and give out grace in accordance with that faith. It's automatically received by faith. And so Jesus tells us we only need a certain amount of faith. And when he was talking about the scripture, he was talking about the faith of a mustard seed. And
well, talk to us about a mustard seed, because a mustard seed is a very small black seed, almost mistaken for lint.
It could be the particular mustard seed that he was talking about is you're talking literally like the size of a speck of dust. You wouldn't see, if you had piled dirt on the floor, you wouldn't pick out a mustard seed from it. And when Christ talks to us about that mustard seed, he says that you could tell that mountain to move and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And that's because that little tiny mustard seed grows into this big tree. They actually grow really big blossoms. They start with this little tiny flower. They're very fragile, and eventually they grow into these really big trees. And it's from this tiny little seed. And so that's what faith is like. It's all it takes is this little bit of faith for all these amazing things to happen. So grace also means that we're accepted by God's love. Hebrews 4:16 offers us encouragement and says, "Let us then feel very sure that we come before God's throne where there is grace. There we can receive mercy and grace to help us when we need it." And so we've received the gift of grace freely. We come to the point in our recovery where we're tasked with passing it on to those whom we have hurt when we make amends, and those who have hurt us when we offer forgiveness. And it could be really hard to do that. It could be hard to forgive the people that have hurt you. It could be hard to even go forward and make amends to other people that you've done harm to.
Yeah, that takes a lot of grace. I'm sorry.
It does.
Doesn't it? I mean, when you guys say that, it does.
And the thing is,
I think when we realize how much grace God has had on us, it makes it easier. But it's that understanding through the process that you realize that God gave it to us freely. How can we hoard it and keep it for ourselves when we should be offering it to other people?
Well, and then tying it in with your faith message. By faith, I'm sure when you start with this 8th step like we do, God, I'm terrified. What are they going to do when I do this? But by faith, stepping out with the mustard seed, Have you found good things happen when you've made your amends?
Oh yeah. When I made my amends to my stepmother, because I was a difficult child, and I also had to forgive her for everything that she had done to me, and God worked a healing in our relationship where she owned up to everything she did.
Oh, wow.
Mended our relationship, and for several years we had this wonderful relationship. For the first time in life, I knew what it was like to have a mom.
Oh man,
wow. It was amazing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, unfortunately, she lost her fight with cancer. She passed away over 9 years ago, but it was an amazing 5 years of having this relationship that were a woman I once despised. I mean, in the worst possible way you can imagine. If you take the total of what it means, the word hate, that's what I felt for this woman. And to the point where the day I was flying back, or the evening I was flying back to New Jersey, because she was passing away from cancer, I got on the plane and I was just, racked with, sadness and, just over this woman who's literally been fighting the death's door for weeks, and the hospice nurse was like, she should be gone, but she's waiting for her son.
That makes tears in my. We never asked you that before.
No, and I actually prayed for her.
Wow.
Got on the plane. It was 9 o'clock out here, and I prayed to God just to take her home. I said, I don't want her to feel pain anymore. And this is a woman that I absolutely would have hated. I would have probably relished the fact that she was in pain.
Right.
And I said, God, just take her home, because morphine, no amount of painkillers they could give her would take away her pain. And so I was like, God, just take her home. And I landed in New Jersey some 6.5 hours later, and my dad was at the airport, and he said that she passed away at midnight. Well, Jersey's 3 hours ahead. So
wow,
the moment
when you
I'm
had
praying
paid.
to God, literally at 9 o'clock at night, I'm on the plane, and I'm praying for the woman I once hated, to be relieved of her pain, to go home to God, and that's where she went.
Well, you talking about grace, amazing grace, Spiro. Wow.
Yeah, and part of that forgiveness, God tells us to forgive. In Matthew 6:12, He says, "Forgive us our debts, as we also forgiven our debtors." And it is through that walk in our recovery where God ends up forgiving us, and because of we receive forgiveness and we accept that forgiveness from God, we start extending that forgiveness to others. The truth is, on our own merit, we're undeserving of forgiveness. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." And so none of us are actually worthy of it. But when we have that little bit of faith, God gives it to us freely. And so it's when I accepted that truth, that's when I was able to start forgiveness. That's when I was able to start making my amends and saying sorry to the people I had hurt, like my wife, and through all the betrayal and lies I had done, I was able to approach her and say, "This is the mess of a man that I was."
Now, wasn't she the one who loved you through? She was there from the very get-go, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. We've been together now, going on 24 years.
I remember. Yeah.
And so she saved my life. She really did.
Yeah.
And she was with me through the suicide attempt, and took care of me through all that. And without her, I wouldn't have been able to make it. But it was through the act of obedience to God that I was able to start extending forgiveness, because I had accepted forgiveness for everything I'd done. And it is through that forgiveness, through that obedience, that He works through all of us and begins to heal the pain of our broken relationships. And Matthew 6:14 says, "If you forgive men when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." And so it's an act of obedience to extend forgiveness. And what we have to understand, the next part of grace, is that Christ paid the price. "I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing."
Right.
That's from Galatians 2:21. And when we understand, Paul is talking about the law, he's talking about the law of Moses, and that's all the Jews that were, and Jesus was a Jew. Following the law meant that's how you lived out your relationship with God.
In your own works, right?
And exactly. And Paul's saying that you can't gain righteousness through the law. Christ reconciles us to God, and that's what makes us righteous. And it is through that understanding that we can't live out. It's not by any law of man. It's not by the law of Moses. It's not by anything else but the work of Christ dying for us, that reconciles us to God, that makes us righteous. That's what allows us to stand before God holy and clean, and free from our sin when we accept Christ in the work that he did on the cross for us.
You really broke that down. Wow.
And
wow.
The last part of grace that we have to understand is that it's an everlasting gift. Philippians 1:6 says it this way, and I'm sure that God, who began the good work within you, will keep right on helping you to grow in his grace until his task within you is finally finished on the day when Jesus Christ returns. So what we understand is that when God gives us grace, it doesn't come with an expiration date.
Right.
It doesn't come with a use by this date. It doesn't fade with time. If anything,
or conditions,
anything else that man has done on this planet, as far as making great monuments, writing great books, whatever it is, changing the world, eventually is going to fade with time. But God's grace doesn't. So even one day the pyramids are going to be dust, right? God's grace can't fade. So 2 Thessalonians 2:16 says, may our Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father encourage you and strengthen you in every good thing you do and say. God loved us, and through his grace he gave us a good hope and encouragement that continues forever. So God sometimes answers our prayers and says yes. Sometimes he might say no. Sometimes when he answers our prayers, he answers by giving us what we need and not necessarily something that we wanted. And, I want to live a life free from physical pain, right? Like, I would love to be able to get up and, run again. I would love to go running for 5 miles like I used to just because I wanted to. I can't do that anymore. But he saved my life from certain death. I know that.
Yes, he did.
He spared me from all the complications of that I could have had, like a total brain injury and everything else. So I could be living life in a wheelchair, and I'm not. What I get to do, though, is I get to go to places like Celebrate Recovery, whether it is at my home church or it is by going to other Celebrate Recoveries, and I give my testimony, or I give a teaching, or I get to come here on this radio show and give a teaching. God gets to use me, and it's not because I'm a great person or anything special. I'm not. But it's through his grace that he's changed my life. And it may not be in the way that I want.
And that's what we go to next, is that God's grace is sufficient.
Yes.
And that is the key to the lesson here today, is that little grace, whether we think it's what we wanted or what is expected, whatever it is, the grace that he gives us really is sufficient. Even through your pain that you still are challenged with, you're still able to share your testimony, inspires others to come to Christ, and it is because of that grace that's sufficient that you're able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a big testimony to others to be able to relate to the people that you're going to be talking to are in pain. And when they see that you are in pain, but yet you still serve this wonderful, awesome God, that's what a testimony is.
Yeah. Yep. And the thing is, like, when we accept that God's grace is sufficient, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. Like, it's like being thirsty and thinking, I'd love to have a gallon of ice cold water tapped directly from a glacier, and God hands you a thimble. When that thimble is sufficient, it's everything to you.
That's a great way of looking at it. That's very true.
That's the same way it is for me in understanding that God's grace is sufficient. So whatever he provides for us in life, may not be everything that we want to have. We might not get our huge mansion, right? We might not get, we might not get the healed relationship. We may not get millions of dollars or whatever it is that we want.
And your physical healing.
Or the physical healing. I just want to run again, right? Something as simple as that. I may not get that, but what God does give is everything I need.
That's right.
And again, he gives us himself.
Exactly.
Because I tell you what, all of that praying for that marriage brought me closer to him, and now I love him. I have a relationship with him.
Yep.
You too.
Oh, definitely.
You too.
Yeah.
And you talk about this grace being sufficient. It's actually more than sufficient, because now you are part of a big ministry out at Parkhurst Christian Church that my daughter was a part of, called The Landing.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about this? Because this is an amazing thing. That you're actually leading this. You're the director.
No,
I don't want to quote you.
I'm one of the team.
From
Okay.
I understand that you're humble and that, but you're really leading this ministry to the next level. Let's talk about The Landing at Parkhurst Christian Church and some of the team that you have.
Yeah. Well, so The Landing is Celebrate Recovery for Teens, and so not Parkhurst. The Landing, or Celebrate Recovery itself, is a ministry. Has always been to be a family ministry, and so at Parkhurst we have Celebration Place, which is for pre-K all the way through elementary school age children, and they go through all the principles of recovery, and they actually work with the kids, so they get to play and have fun, all that fun stuff too, and have snacks and everything. But they actually do lessons on recovery, so these little kids get to learn what denial is.
Oh, that's so neat.
Powerlessness is.
There you go.
Who God is, right? And then The Landing is Celebrate Recovery for Teens, and so we do everything that Celebrate Recovery does. We have worship, we have open share groups, but all the lessons that we do are geared in a way to reach and to work with alongside of teens. And then, of course, you have Celebrate Recovery, which is for all the adults. And so you get to have a whole family show where if you have a little one, you have a teenager, and you have the adult, all going to Celebrate Recovery, all receiving the recovery at the same time, and all healing through the relationship with God at the same time through the process of recovery. And so we're starting off, right now we're doing what's a soft launch this coming Friday. It's just going to be for the first couple months where we're just getting used to everything, and then we're going to relaunch again in January, where we're going to start over again on denial. We have a team of 8 people, which I'm a part of. I'm not the leader. Everybody has a partner, and so me and my partner Ann, we're both making sure that the ministry, as far as The Landing, is being taken care of, and we have 6 other amazing leaders. 3 of our leaders, including myself, are from our CR leadership team, and so we're pulling double duty. So we're going to have our Landing meetings as a team, and then we have to go to the CR team meetings as a team, and we have to report to the team.
Accountability.
So we have accountability on all fronts.
There you go.
But it's going to be an amazing thing, and we know it's going to be blessed by God. We're receiving the support of the leadership at our church, from our ministry leader, Kathy Taylor, who is also a pastor at our church, through the youth ministry and family ministry leaders at our church. And it's such a blessing to be able to have that. We're excited, we're nervous, and excited at the same time, because we know that there's hurting kids out there.
And you can really identify with that.
Yeah, definitely.
You really can.
And the real beauty part is that it's equipping teens with the tools of recovery, so that when they get into the real issues of life, when they get done with high school and everything else, where they think high school is everything in the whole, is their whole world, and there's this bigger world out there. As adults, when we act out, there's serious repercussions that last throughout our lives, and we're equipping them with tools at a young age to where they may never have to end up in needing recovery meetings.
There you go.
Because they know what it is to need Christ. They know what tools they'll be able to have to go to.
That's right.
And the thing is, even if they continue to stumble along the way, they'll know there's a place where they can go to, even as adult, and celebrate recovery. And so it introduces them to the larger ministry that's going on around the world now.
Amen.
Oh, wow.
Amen.
Very well said.
Well, the show is coming to a close, Spiro, so we would like to ask you, what does joy in my house mean to you?
Well, now, what it means to me is that God gets to challenge me and continue to change me. I got comfortable in being in the leadership team at Celebrate Recovery, where I was leading my open share group, and it was during my prayer where I said, God, I don't want to I don't want to be part of the Landing.
Yes, I'm laughing at you. Well, you laughing, you next.
Yeah.
You laughing, but
I told God, I'm comfortable, and right when I said those words, I knew that God was challenging me.
That's right.
To grow, get out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
And so it's going to be my joy to be in a place where I'm going to be of use to reach teens and work with teens, and at the same time I know God's going to change me through that process.
That was yay.
Amen.
Amen.
You can find more information regarding the Landing or Celebrate Recovery in Long Beach at parkcrest.org. You can also find more information regarding Celebrate Recovery at celebraterecovery.com. You can also find Spiro, say your last name and spell it out, on Facebook.
It's Roxiotis. It's Raxiotis.
That's
I want you guys to link up, find them. If
He'll
any
be here in
questions
a couple
or
of
comments.
months for another teaching.
I want to thank Lolita Robinson, my co-host, for coming in here.
I challenged.
This is Joy in My House. I want you to catch us live every Sunday here at noon. Next week, we have our in-studio guest, Donald Taylor. He's a minister and singer with a life-changing story you're not going to want to miss.
Yay.
This is Joy in My House. You guys have a blessed day today.
He starts to work, I put him on hold. Still he's faithful to me, 'cause he's blind as to see. I'm praising God, praising God, I'm praising God, praising God, I'm praising God, praising God, I'm praising God. Oh, I'm praising God. He's all to me, my life, my love. He sets me free, I love him any time of day. I close my eyes and I can pray to Jesus. Come and find.
Hey y'all, I'm Adame, and I'm all about that money. Just ask my husband Sonny. He takes good care of me and listens to everything I say. And I want you to listen to me and come to the stage play, Juicy. Don't judge a booty by its cover. It's a story about my daughter Mia Moore, who's blessed with a gold mine. However, she doesn't listen to me and doesn't know how to use it. But that's okay, because Juicy, her alter ego that I created, does listen and does exactly what I want her to do. Because a woman's gotta do what a woman's gotta do. So come and check us out along with the cast of crazy, hilarious, unbelievable characters on Friday, October 30th at 8 p.m., Sunday, November 1st at 3 p.m., and Sunday, November 1st at 7 p.m. at the Macha Theater in West Hollywood. For tickets, go to JuicyBrownPaperBagTickets.com or 323-450-7802. You could call. And remember, don't judge a booty by its cover.
Hi, this is Rhonda Ray, inviting you to join us every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, for Hot Chicks Live. Join us as we discuss the latest fashion, entertainment, sports, and more. So don't forget to tune in to Hot Chicks Live every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio, or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kink Switch. Take a ride with us on this exquisite journey of BDSM in living color. Kink Switch, where you'll witness the debut of the delicious melding, the wonder and beauty of kink. The Kink Switch, where sensuality and the pleasures of the senses meets the pleasures of pain. Through the art of spoken word and poetry, the art of BDSM is exposed. Yes, Kink Switch, performing live and direct on stage at CAP Studio, 13752 Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, California, Friday, October 16th, 2015, 8:30 p.m. For tickets and more information, visit www.kinkswitch.com or call the Kink Switch hotline at 510-384-9119. That's 510-384-9119. Release, explore, witness. Kink Switch.
Exactly 25 years ago, the United States welcomed 54 million individuals with disabilities into the workforce. And today, even more opportunities exist.
Hi, my name is Dan Jamal Cooper, and I specialize in job placement for individuals with disabilities. I advise on laws, employee rights and regulations for disabled workers. Meet Rick and Amber Boggs, a visually impaired couple who don't allow their disability to overcome their drive to create jobs for the community.
Dan Juma has been an integral part of our business success, and I believe he is an asset to any business or individual.
Together, we can empower your community and enrich your business. So remember, when it comes to making your business work, make the change today. The Disability Awareness Experts.
Hi, this is Shalon Douglas, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, to demo your startup on air with a Pitch Live to Win syndicated digital broadcasting show. Join us as we share real conversations from real industry experts within the tech, education, media, and entertainment industries for your chance to win opportunities that will gain you access to resources, exposure, and capital. So remember to tune in to the Pitch Live Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality broadcast handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.